Some things just go together. Wine and cheese, flowers in springtime, and yes, books and bottles. We pair your favorite author with your favorite drink. Your host of Books and Bottles, Benita Johnson.
Hi, welcome to Books and Bottles. I'm your host, Benita Johnson, owner of the Vine Wine Club. I'm excited to be back at Hill Prince, 1337 H Street Northeast. You know, I started the season or last season out here, and we kind of been away for a while, but we're back, and I'm excited. So thank you for tuning in. This is our show where we introduce you to your favorite author, and we pair their works with a wine or a spirit. If you've been with us before, we so appreciate you for coming back. If this is your first time, you're in for a treat. So today I have a young lady on that I met on Facebook. If you're an author, there's so many really cool groups that you can get in to talk about your work. And sometimes there are people like me out there who's not really an author, but I'm just looking for authors who've written some interesting stuff. So we've been off for a couple weeks, but if you've been watching, you know our last few shows have been a lot of historical fiction. And I think this one may be a little of that. So today we have author Miss Karen Osborne, and we're going to talk about her book, True Grace, A Black Woman's Journey to Save Her Family. So welcome, Karen. Hi.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I'm glad you could be here with us today. So we're going to jump right in. So, you know, folks know who've been on the show, we don't give everything away about the book because this show is about introducing you, your work. We want folks to support independent authors, and all authors actually need support. So we want folks to support you, but I want to get into this book because just reading what I read, just the Amazon. Usually I read the books, but I've been a little busy over the last couple months. But I'm excited about this book. So this book is about a lady named Grace. It's set in the 1924, I believe, during the Renaissance period, the Roaring Twenties, and she has some ordeal. So how did you come up with Grace? Who introduced you to Grace?
So Grace is a book. I've wanted to write this book for so long. This is actually my fourth novel. I have 3 other novels out, but this one I probably was working on the longest because it's inspired by my grandmother.
Wow.
My grandmother's name is Grace. The rest of the names are changed. The last name and everything is changed, but I wanted to keep Grace's name in the book. And she's an extraordinary woman. And this is just like one little slice of her extraordinary life. You know, I picked 1 year, 5 months of her life.
Wow. Okay. So how much of it is really your grandmother's life, her journey?
Yeah. The beginning of the novel is very factual.
Okay.
The first on page 4, Grace is in the story as the book opens. Grace is 27 years old. She's a mother of 5 children. She is living in Harlem, New York. She got there with her husband. She got there via being born in the Congo, raised in England, and then in Jamaica, and married in Jamaica, and then the family moved to Harlem during the Harlem Renaissance, when jazz was
Yes.
just blossoming, and Madame Walker's hair salons were going, and the artists, the writers, it was just one of those rich times, and
Yes.
women taking off their girdles, but that all didn't touch every corner of society.
Yeah.
And Grace is living among all of this, but her world is much narrower
Vastly
than
different.
what she sees outside. And so on page 4 of the novel, you meet Grace. and you hear about her children and her husband and how she helps her neighbors and she's young and energetic. And then on page 4, something devastating, I mean, devastating happens. And the rest of the story is how she overcomes this devastating. And the first words of
Yeah,
the book.
let us see the cover. Let our viewers see the cover. Yes.
And listen to this opening line.
Okay.
This so the opening line is chapter 1, part 1, chapter 1. The first time my husband died, I felt fear, shame, and guilt. The second time he died, and then it just
Wow. You know what? The one thing I love about this show and meeting authors like yourself and others is that even when the authors are talking about the same time period, we get to see that everything wasn't joyous. I think a couple seasons ago we had author Denny Bryce on, and it was her book Wild Women and the Blues, and it was about that same time, and so it was about the heyday in Chicago and everything that was going on. And so you introduced us to, as you say, everybody wasn't living that life. So Grace introduces us to a different world. So talk to us a little bit about your research process, because when we go back 100 years, we got to do some homework, and unfortunately a lot of the history that we've been afforded isn't necessarily the truth. So talk to us about your research process.
So I have been blessed with some firsthand research. I had to do
Mm.
lots of other research, but I
Yes.
had first. So the first is all the conversations I had with my grandmother. And I still remember them. I remember her really well. I remember her voice, and she was a very elegant person. You know,
Hmm.
she was Grace. I mean,
Okay.
all the meanings of the word grace. My second source was that her father, my grandfather, my great grandfather, was famous in his time. And so I own 5 books written about him.
Okay.
That gave me factual information about her time in the Congo and her time in England, and letters, literally letters that he wrote her. And then my
Hmm.
third wonderful source is I have 300 pages of handwritten letters
Oh,
by,
wow.
I know, how special is that? How amazing,
Yes.
300 pages of letters. So that was some of my source material. And then I had to really do all kinds of research, because after the part that I knew to be true, I had to make up a lot of stuff, because I didn't
Yeah.
know what happened. I didn't know
You
what
just
happened.
gotta fill in some gaps. Right.
Yes. So, but the internet is amazing.
Yeah.
Google is awesome, and so I didn't even have to use AI. I just used Google
Yeah.
and found photos and pictures of Harlem in that time. One of my favorite pictures for a while. Her children were in Queens, New York. This takes place,
Hmm.
as you know, in New York,
Yes.
and there is this picture of the L train on up above,
Hmm.
an old-timey car, a Model T,
Yes.
and a horse-drawn cart, the man collecting garbage. This
Wow.
was a time of great change. When she's
Yeah.
walking across the street, she has to, the fumes from the cars, the clanging of the trolleys, and the steam rising up from a dump by a horse.
Yeah.
The pungent smell and the steam coming up, and all of that was happening. And here she was, a mixed race immigrant woman, um, with no resources of her own, just to even get her money out of the bank. If her husband didn't sign the withdrawal slip. She couldn't have
Right.
access to it.
Right.
So it was, it was a very, very, very interesting time of great change.
Yeah.
And Grace grows and stretches during that time. She stays true to herself, but she's hit with 1, 2, 3, 4, things that she has to just overcome. And she does it with
Yeah.
grit and grace, perseverance.
So, as I mentioned, we've had several authors recently. I think, just a few weeks ago, we had Rashonda Tate with her book about the lady from Gone with the Wind. We had Victoria Christopher Murray, talking about her book with Mary McLeod Bethune and Eleanor Roosevelt. And, and I know, those works were fantastic. How is this one is different because this is personal. So how did you feel telling your personal, and this is your lineage, you're talking about your grandma, so how did you feel like giving us your personal story? How was that for you, putting this down on paper?
It was, at first, that's what took so long, because I kept getting stuck. Because how can I write this story about someone I grew up with? My aunts and uncles, my father is her youngest child. And so then I decided, you know what? This is going to be a work of fiction. Stop trying to make it a memoir. I changed everybody's name except for Grace
Miss Grace.
and one of her daughters. And because who she is so pivotal to the story. So I just kept both of them the same. And that freed me. Suddenly I could okay, this is a novel. This isn't history. This isn't
a biography, right?
Biography. It's not a memoir. It's fiction. So that freed me. But often at the end, whenever I'm at a book club, presenting or a signing, especially when people have read the book, they ask me, very pointed, personal family questions. And I don't mind answering them. I'm good with, at the end of the story, if people want. I actually put a little slideshow together that at book clubs I show them. I show them photos of my grandma. I show them photos of where they honeymooned in Jamaica. I collected all kinds of the boats in the Congo that her parents sailed the Congo, where they were building along the Congo River. They were missionaries and they were building schools and wells, and they had this rickety boat that they sailed, and I have a picture of that. So it's
and that's important, as you're blessed to be able to have so many personal artifacts to help you with your story, and it just helps with the visual. But I'm sure when you do these book club presentations and readings in public, that you inspire other people to want to do the work and tell the stories of their loved ones and their ancestors, and bring it to life. So what types of advice would you give people who they want to be like you? They want to be a Karen Osborne, and they have a Grace, and they want to share the stories.
Writers write. Writers write. So if you really want to write whatever the story is, you've got to make it part of your everyday life.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be, I'm going to, write for X number of hours. I have a cousin who's an author. I have two cousins who are authors, and my son is an author. And the cousin, he just says, well, it's my job. So I get up in the morning and I write for 6 hours, and it's my job. Well, I don't have 6 hours a day to write. So that's not a luxury I have. But I do try to write every single day. My son, who works full time and has, he has a son, he has a wife, he has a business that he owns. So he committed to 15 minutes a day.
Okay.
And he writes 15 minutes every day. So my first piece of advice is to write. And you can get caught up in the research and go down rabbit holes
Mm-hmm.
and spend all your time kind of world building, but you got to get the story going. You have
Yeah,
to
you do.
start, right? You got to get the story going. And then, I mean, some people spend years researching before they even, hit the first keys.
Put anything on paper, right?
Um, whatever your system is, it's right for you. But
Right.
I believe that you need to write. You can't just research. You got to write. Get it
Well,
going. Get it going.
I like your son's process because like sometimes folks who want to write, it seems very daunting, but 15 minutes seems pretty light, right? And it doesn't have to be 15 minutes right now. 15 minutes, you can do five here, five here, five here. It
Exactly.
just seems like, we're building this whole mountain, but we're doing it one little rock at a time. And I think it's important for folks to just write. So we are a show that we also celebrate the grape. So what are you drinking today, ma'am?
I have a
Yay!
glass of Kim Crawford Sauvignon Blanc.
Ooh,
Lovely, kind of mid-price, easy to find. It's
yes.
very crisp. It's a crisp white, not like a soft Chardonnay. It's much more of a
Hmm.
crisp white. And here's to you. I did want to just mention that this was my first historical fiction. So my other
Okay.
three novels are all contemporary. They're
Okay.
all present day. I have two family sagas and one murder mystery.
So when did you start writing?
So my first book came out when I was 69 years old. And when my agent called me to invited me to lunch to give me a contract, an offer from a publisher,
Yes.
and
Yes.
I was so professional, and I took notes and I thanked her and I shook her hand. And when I hit that door leaving that restaurant, I cried all the way to my
I am sure you
oh my
did.
goodness! After all these years, I'm a writer. I'm a writer. So this True Grace came out my 75th year, and my new book will come out in a year from now in March, and I'm going to be 76. I'll be 77.
Well, we're gonna definitely have you back on the show to talk about your new book. But that's another whole conversation talking about second and third acts. And as so many of us now, I'm excited because I have a lot of amazing friends. Um, and I always say we're the same age, right? But I have a lot of amazing friends that are, closer to your age than mine, and they're doing amazing things. It's gone are the days that we're just going to sit back, at 60 and rocking a chair. I remember being 20 and I thought 60 was like, the
Really
end,
old.
very old. And now since I'm very close to it, and I still work very hard to reinvent myself all the time. We're still living until we're not. So congratulations to
Thank,
you and
thank
kudos to you. And I gotta comment on that Sauvignon Blanc because I love Sauvignon Blanc too because I like the crisp, I like the grapefruity, the earthiness of
you.
Sauvignon Blanc, and I had a good one. I think Kim Crawford is from New Zealand.
Mm-hmm.
But New Zealand is like Mecca for Sauvignon Blanc. So
Yeah.
today I'm drinking bourbon because I am at my friend's bar, Hill Prince in Washington, D.C., Northeast. And everybody knows I own Wine Crawl DC, and so we do wine events. But this year we're gonna do some spirit events. So in April, April. My dates are set. April 27th, the last Saturday of April. We're doing our first spirited wine crawl in Northern Virginia. So we're going to be making our own cocktails, and then we're doing one here, right here at Hill Prince. And Hill Prince is owned by my food bae, Rock Harper. Everybody knows Rock. He's a celebrity chef. He owns this bar. So we're doing a cocktail class here on May 18th. So we hope our DC folks, so people who are close to DC, can come through and support us. So, Miss Karen, how do people get your books, and is it on Audible?
Yes. So 3 of my 4 books are on Audible. So my first one wasn't, but my murder mystery is Reckonings, the Family Saga, and True Grace are all on Audible. And you can find me on Amazon, Barnes and Noble. You can go to your local library, and if they don't have it, they can get it easily. So any place you buy books, you can get my books. And plus, I have a podcast where I interview authors.
Okay.
It's called "What Are You Reading? What Are You Writing?" And it comes on every Tuesday. It's 3 years old, and it's still cranking along. So
that's awesome. So I do have your book on Audible because everybody knows I spend a lot of time on 95 between Richmond and Washington D.C. And so, the best way for me to absorb a book is to listen to it. And so it is important that we get it anywhere we can. So I wanted to ask that question. So I want to thank you for being a part of Books and Bottles. I really appreciate you. I know next year when you come out with the next book at this time next year, please, we want you back. In case I forget, you got my email. You email me and say I'm ready. We'll have you back on the show. And I don't know how far you are from DC, but we're working on some in-person events. So we can certainly talk about having you here as well.
I would love that. I'm in Florida, but it's just a plane ride away, so I can do that. And I'm going to be in wine country this September. I'll be in Sonoma at a winery doing a book signing. So it's all on my website. So KarenOsborne.com.
Tell us the website one more time. I'm sorry, I was talking.
Karen, Karen, Osborne, OSBORNE.com. And all of my appearances and everything are on the events page. And I hope I'll be able to add your wonderful event in DC. And I hope anybody who's on the West Coast, come see me in Sonoma.
Oh, yeah, we got plenty of wine friends over there. So we make sure we'll push it out for you. Again, thank you so much for being here. And we'll see you again real soon. I'm sure of it.
Thank you so much. Have a great night, everybody.
You too. So stay on here. If we have other authors who are watching and you'd like to be a part of Books and Bottles, please send us an email at info@groseprod.com. That stands for groseproduction.com. Hit us up and we can have you on the show. Thank you again for tuning in. Please remember to share so we can grow this audience and support our authors. Buy those books. We want everybody to be a bestseller. I'm fighting a net in here, y'all, so don't think I'm crazy. So thank you again for tuning in. Until next time, cheers.
Join us, Indie TV, where you will see the talk shows, movies, drama, action, and comedy. Be the first and see it first.